So good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us this evening. But a very special thank you to Pastor Taylor of Rebirth Christian Fellowship for this platform and the opportunity to present on this very important topic, the importance of a budget. And to Eric Lusain of Lusain Funeral Home for having the vision to formulate this series for young adults. So I'm super excited to partner with both of them to write this series, and we are looking forward to presenting on financial topics that are very important to our young adults. Again, Eric, a really big thank you for underwriting this series, and I know it will be well received. So again, good evening, everyone. I'm Darlene Wilson. I am the managing principal of Relay Accounting Management. I have an accounting firm here in Birmingham, Alabama, have been in practice for now 15 years and in this profession for about 25 years now. So we service businesses that don't have accounting departments on site. So we're always super excited about working with small businesses, getting them started and helping them to really manage their finances and their flow. But I will tell you that working through this series is a passion of mine, and something that's very important to me is young finance and making sure that our young adults have the information that they need as they begin planning for their future in their jobs and in their careers. So this series was specifically targeted to 17 to 25-year-olds. We will talk a good bit throughout this series about the importance of a budget, opening up bank accounts, saving your money, how to get credit cards, how to use credit cards, and understanding loan options, such as for home purchasing and car loans. And presenting with me today is our assistant accountant who works in our firm, but he is also my son. So his name is Christian Wilson Poole. He is my assistant accountant. He has been with us since the age of 15 years old. So he works very closely with the firm and really helping us to kind of understand what our young adults need. And it's very critical that he continues to contribute in that way to our firm so that we can meet the needs of our young people. So today we're going to talk about the importance of budgeting and why you set up a budget. So we're not going to talk a whole lot. We're going to give lots of time in the end for questions so that we can give you all some answers to some of the direct questions that you have as it relates to preparing a budget and why it's important to have a budget. So again, I'm Darlene Wilson, and presenting with me is Christian Wilson Poole. So we'll get right into talking about budgeting and why budgeting is so important. So just a real quick definition on what a budget is. It's really just a document. It could be handwritten. You can use an app. You can use an Excel spreadsheet, whatever you would like. You can use just pen and paper. It is just somewhere where you're going to document your income and your expenses. And it's going to be based on either an average monthly income or an annual income. Most young adults typically start off with a monthly budget to try to help them better prepare and understand what line items they need to budget and things that they need to plan for. So we're going to just quickly go on into Christian talking to us just a little bit about his young adult life and what are some of the main line items that he has on his budget and why tracking that at this time is important for him.
Thank you for that introduction, Darlene. That was great. It's important as a college senior to kind of break down 3 line items that are extremely important. And I broke it down into 3 simple categories. I've broken it down into food, transportation, and unexpected expenses. Those are the 3. So for food, as a college student, you know it's unrealistic to go to school and believe that you're going to use all your dollars in the cafeteria. You're going to need some extra money to spend on food. So that's something that you need to budget for at all times. Don't just be buying food when there's no need to buy food. Secondly is transportation. Whether you have a car or whether you'll use public transportation or whether you need Uber or whether you take the train, you're going to need to save money for your transportation, for your whereabouts, how you're going to get around. Saving money for transportation is super important. It's an underrated expense that people really don't take into account. That's extremely important, especially when it comes to your gas and paying for your gas and how to budget your money in terms of keeping money all the time for gas and not having to feel like you're taking money out of your main account for things such as gas and stuff like that. The next is unexpected expenses: broken phone, broken laptop, car breaks down, flat tire. I'm the king of flat tires. I've had plenty of them. So flat tires, stuff like that. That is just stuff that you need to plan for and be ready for, and not feel like if something like that happens that you're just taking such a hit financially that you might not even be able to eat for the next week, or you won't be able to eat as well as you usually do. So when you start your budget, especially at this age, you got to break down stuff that are important, such as your needs. Your needs are the first thing that comes when you start your budget. So if you're making money and you know that you need to eat, you know that you need to pay your phone bill, you know that you need to do that, those are the two or three things that you need to take out of your paycheck and pay for initially, immediately. You don't need to buy shoes, you don't need to buy jewelry, no makeup, none of that stuff. You need to take care of your needs first. Um, and then don't have your account day to day. That's why it's great to have a checkings and a savings account. It's always great to have a checkings and a savings account, and not just a savings account, like a savings account that you're not touching. This is money that you do not touch. This is money that you're building upon. This is money that you literally are building up to for these rainy days, for those unexpected expenses, for things like that. And lastly, with this, budgeting just takes sacrifice. It's a big sacrifice, and you have to be prepared to. You have to be prepared not to just move into an apartment after you get out of college, but you have to be prepared to live in the apartment. Apartments don't come with TVs. They don't come with food. They don't come with, because once you move in, the bills are going to come. So if you're not ready for it, then you're not going to be prepared to handle the expenses that come along with that. So that's the sacrifice it takes to save that money. So you do have those things that you want in your home when you move into an apartment or you get your own place. And you're not too worried about, oh my gosh, I'm just drowning all my cash, because you weren't prepared to buy a couch. You weren't prepared to buy a bed. You weren't prepared to buy accessories to decorate your living quarters. So that's that's just a couple things in terms of three line items, and how to manage those three line items and how to keep those things first, because your needs comes first with your finances. Your needs always comes first with your finances. Wants are always the third party. Wants are always the third party. Your needs come first, then you save, and then you see what you have to see what you can buy and what you want to buy after you take care of all the necessary things. So I'm gonna let Darlene continue, and I'm gonna talk a little later about a couple other things.
So good, Christian. So let's just talk a little bit. So maybe I hope you all have pen and paper. I know that this is being recorded and you'll go back and listen at some of these items, but we're going to talk about some basic elements of a budget that you want to include. So those basic elements in terms, initially, it's going to be your income. And so let me just say, your income includes all earned wages, if you are receiving child support, if you are receiving any other distribution savings accounts where you are getting any kind of interest income, anything that you are accounting for that's going to be a monthly part of your outgoing that you can use for your outgoing expenses. So that's your income. I know a lot of you are probably saying, well, I'm not quite sure how much money I will make every single month or even every single pay period. What you want to do is take an average of that income. There's an average number of hours that each one of you work on your jobs. Take an average and take the lower of that average, and that's how you want to begin building your budget. Then you're going to take your fixed expenses. And I consider your fixed expenses things such as your rent, your utilities, insurance. Insurance can be insurance for your vehicle, rental insurance, and any other direct payments such as those. Okay? Again, utilities, I know a lot of you are saying, I'm not quite sure. My utilities vary every month. Again, there's an average amount that you will be able to budget for as it relates to your utilities. Other items that are fixed expenses: cable, internet, phone service, any type of loan payments that you have, student loans, car payments, even childcare. You want to include those items in your budget as fixed expenses. All right, that's really, really important, because what you're trying to determine is what is your net income after you have paid all of your fixed expenses on a monthly basis. Then you will begin thinking about, well, maybe what are some of my variable expenses? Variable expenses include things like donations, certainly your tithes and your offerings. Groceries, like Christian mentioned, those are your variable expenses. What is going to be your average food cost in your home on a weekly basis, monthly basis, however you would like to do your shopping? Things such as credit card payments, right? You must account for what your base minimum credit card payments are. What are those? Making sure that that amount is in your budget. Another line item that Christian mentioned was repairs and maintenance. That is also very important to budget for on a monthly basis. It does not mean that you will use that line item every single month, but you budget for that, because you never know when you will have that emergency. Again, as Christian mentioned, a flat tire, but it's not just a flat tire, it's the repair of the flat tire. It could be the tow fee of your vehicle if that is going to be required. But it's also things as simple as maintenance, as in an oil change. Plan for that based on the average number of miles that you drive. You know when that oil change will be coming due. And other things that Christian also mentioned: fuel and transportation. Very, very important. We don't think about that. The amount of fuel that it takes us to get to and from work, or any other transportation fees that it will take us to get to and from work. You have to budget for that so that you can be well prepared to be able to get to and from work. So there's some other categories on a budget that is also very important. And I know a lot of you, that this is important to our young adults, and we want to make sure that you're able to budget for some of these line items. But please know that they're not necessities, but yet you can budget for them. So Christian's going to talk to us a little bit more about the two important categories of your personal budget. So Christian, you talk to us about how you're currently using your personal budget. Now, can you speak to us about why it is as important to budget for such discretionary expenses and personal financial goals, which directly include savings? We want to talk a little bit about that. What are some of those discretionary expenses again? Making sure that those are included on your budget, and maybe some personal financial savings tips.
Great, Darlene. So, just to clarify, discretionary expense is something that you can do without. You can go without it. You don't have to have it. You may think you have to have it, but you don't have to have it. So I'll list out a couple things such as hair services, car wash, new shoes, dinner, concerts, traveling, cable service, new cell phones that are unnecessary. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about myself. I love shoes. I love to travel. I love to go out and eat with my friends. And I know that. So as an individual, you know those discretionary expenses that I love to get my hair cut. You got to know that those are discretionary expenses that you are willing to pay for. So you have a list of 10 things that you like to do. You got to cut it to 3 or 4, and that's what you budget for. Those are the things that you're going to do. That's how those are your discretionary, that's your discretionary cash. That's what my mom would call it, fast cash. That's what Darlene would call it, is fast cash. That's your cash that you can go out and do the stuff that you like to do. But this is after you pay off all the things that I'm saying, such as your bills, such as your phone bills, everything that you need to pay for. So I'm going to give an example, and I'm going to give a brief example. And let's say you make $5,000 a month. You make $5,000 a month. Your rent is $1,500. You got $3,500 left over, but you got to pay your phone bill. You got to pay for some gas. You got to get some groceries. So by that time, you're probably down to about $2,500. what makes sense for you to go spend the 2,500? Doesn't make too much sense, huh? So you can take that 2,500, start you a savings account, start you something that you can build some wealth off of, start you something that you can actually realize that, okay, this is how I can do all the discretionary things that I want to do without just spending it all on my fast cash after my first check. Put it away. You don't need all of that money at one time. It's really easy to set aside and set goals for your money that you receive and your leftover money. So my thing about money after you pay for the things that you need is that you need to set goals for the money that you have left over. What do I want to do with this? What do I want to do in the future? What do I have to do for me to get this new car or get this apartment when I get out of school? What do I do for that? And that's something that will help set you up, is to save that money and not spend willy-nilly and spend frivolously, to where you're not too sure of like what you're purchasing, or you're not keeping track of what you're purchasing and you're just spending out of control. That's how you lose money. That's really how individuals get in a hole with their money, spending willy-nilly and not having goals for the money that they have left over. So there's a couple budgeting apps that people could use. That's because I know apps are big and technology is big. So I know NerdWallet is a great one for people to use to budget. You can literally put what you want into the app, what your goal is, and how much money you make, and how much money you want to contribute to this certain goal that you have within your budget. And it manages it for you. It literally tells you, yes, you need to be putting money in this right now. Like, you need to continue to put money in this. And the same with Every Dollar Budgeting app. That's also a good one. Same type of concept. Great concept, actually. Very smart. Very smart. And I don't want y'all to think as us saying this budgeting as like, this is just something like it's a restriction on your money and we're telling you what to do with your money. And no. Budgeting is a strategic way of building wealth, of building what you want to do. And it honestly just makes your life way more fun. It makes your life way less stressful. It makes your life way more stressful. So that's the thing. Less stressful. That's the thing when it comes to budgeting. And it's not a restriction. It's not something that you have to do. It's not something that people are holding up a gun to your head to do. But it is something that this is how individuals have built wealth over periods of time. And it's budgeting. And it's as simple as budgeting. And I wish that colleges would introduce budgeting classes, because kids don't know. Students don't know. I was blessed to grow up in a household where my mom focused on money. That's her profession. So I was lucky. But I'm glad to talk to individuals that maybe aren't too sure, or maybe are making the money and they don't know how they're not maintaining it, or they don't know what they're spending it on, and they don't know where their expenses are going. So kick it back over to Darlene.
So really good with that. So again, he mentioned a couple apps that you can use. Some other ways, just really quickly, that you can meet some of your financial goals is opening up a savings account. Again, we can't stress that enough, how important that is to kind of separate your money. I always say start with something. If it's $5 a pay period, always find a way to save. There's a discipline you have to kind of create around yourself when it comes to savings. I always feel like savings needs to be kind of an out of sight, out of mind sort of line item, that it's not really something that you're considering as a part of your funding for your expenses every single month, but that you know that this money is being put away for either your rainy day, for either the purchase of a home, for needing maybe a down payment for a car. Other ways there are many ways of saving, and that's important. That should be very important to you as you think about how you're going to build out your budget. So with that being said, remember this: if you are spending more than you're making, that is a negative net loss there, okay? So you do not want that. You can only spend up to the amount of money that you earn. So your budget has to come back to zero at the end of each month. So therefore, if you're making $2,000 a month, you cannot have $2,500 worth of expenses. If you have $2,000 a month that you will have in your checking account, you only can spend $2,000. And so therefore you have to create a budget that balances. It has to fit within the amount of money that you earn. So we're going to take our first question, and this is a really good question. So a sample budget for someone making $15 an hour and working 40 hours a week, and they're living with their parents. So $15 an hour, 40 hours a week is $30,000 a year. So if you want to do an annualized budget, that's a really good place for you to start. And when I say $30,000 a year, that is your gross salary. So you need to do your budget based on what your net income amount is. So that is less the taxes, health insurance, any type of prepayments that come out of your checking account, out of your payroll check. So you want to account for only the net income. And you want to get started again with those line items that are your needs now. What bills are you paying now? That you have to cover every month. You want to list that bill and you want to list that amount. If you are considering because you said you're living with your parents, you may be considering moving out. You may be considering getting your own place. If you are, do some market research. Understand where you're trying to go and what those costs may be in those areas. What is going to be the average rent for the area in which you would like to move into. Understand what utilities you may be responsible for. It could be power, gas, water, all those things. So you can do what we call a forecast budget for what you're looking to do later, maybe not now. And honestly, most of it you should be able to save. It's a great time to save when you are working a full-time job and you have the flexibility to live with your parents. It's a great time to save your money and only really spend money on your needs and very few wants at that time.
That's good.
So
I did have one thing to say, Darlene. For the 24 and 25-year-olds on the live that are potentially getting married or maybe engaged or something like that, I think one cool thing that couple should start thinking about doing is living off of one income. I think that one income and budgeting with one income and saving the other person's income is the best way to build wealth. And for you 23, 24, 25-year-olds who might be getting married or getting engaged and stuff like that, that's the best way to get your stuff paid for, get your wedding paid for, get just simple stuff, just living off one income and saving the rest, because there's no reason to really live off two incomes with just two people. If y'all are making $45,000, $50,000, you can really live off of that with just two people and be fine. It's just what I'm talking about. Budgeting is a sacrifice. And then when you're saving that 40, 45 grand, 50 grand from the other side, and it's just saving, then your kid's school is paid for in the next 5, 6, 7 years. Then you're wondering like, wow, maybe living off this one income was the best move. Maybe it was a good strategy. So that's all I wanted to say right there.
Yeah, good input on that, Christian. So there was another question out here. It says, how soon after establishing a budget do you become comfortable setting up auto drafts for variable expenses? So that's an interesting question because if you have a stable job and with a stable income, then maybe auto drafts from the perspective of discipline and ensuring that those payments are made on time and that there's no lapse, especially for insurance payments and things like that. That may be the best way to go. I, on the other hand, and I think it's just an age thing for me, I really like to see my bill first. I like to review my bill first, really make sure that it is accurate before I make the payment. But such things like set expenses like car insurance, health insurance, and for us, health insurance, because of course I am self-employed, so health insurance comes out after I get paid. So therefore, any type of insurance payments like that, sure, set those up on auto draft. They don't typically fluctuate, and if they do, you will know the fluctuation in that amount prior to your next draft, so that you can plan accordingly. What percentage should be saved? That's an interesting question, right? Because I don't know that there's any real number there in terms of saying what a percentage is. I always say that initially when you start budgeting as a young adult, maybe a dollar amount is works better. So maybe you decide that I made $628 this week. And that's what your check amount was, $628. And you decide I'm going to save at least $25. You've decided this, that each time I get paid, I'm going to save $25. You simply do that. You simply save that amount before you do anything else. Okay.
Yep.
The other thing with savings, there's another easy way to save. If you have a company and you're doing direct deposit, you can give your company your savings account number. They can do a split direct deposit for you, and you can tell them either based on percentage or based on dollar amount what you would like to have go directly into your savings. That way it goes to your savings. It never comes to you first. And again, it's that whole out of sight, out of mind. That's a good way also to start saving. But save something. Something is better than nothing at all. And it needs to be that something that you have no plans on touching unless it's being used for what you have said it is saved for. Okay? So think about that.
I agree with you, Darlene. Yeah. I think the set dollar amount is a great idea, especially if you're just starting to save and just starting to budget. Because for me, when I just started to save and I was just starting to budget when I was in my teenage years, that's what I would do for my checks, from my work. Because I served tables growing up in high school. So the cash tips that I would make, I knew that whatever I made today, I'm saving $50 of it. Whatever I made on my check, I'm saving $50 of it, regardless. I'm saving $50 of it. And just having that set dollar amount, it makes it a little easier instead of just taking a percentage out and the numbers always being different and stuff like that. So I agree with you on that, Darlene.
I mean, a percentage is great if you're making a set amount every pay period, and you want to start off with that 5% or that 10%, but you certainly want to save something, okay? So then there's another question I hear. It says, how should I budget going into college? Yes. And how not to be in student debt from loans. Very interesting. So thank you for that question, because again, a budget is going to need to be set. So if you're going to use student loans to get through school, you certainly still need to minimize the expenses that you have while you're in college. So with that being said, if any of your student loan amount is going to be used to cover your living expenses, which I completely understand that is sometimes very necessary for young adults to get through college. They will have to use some of their student loan funds to cover their living expenses. Again, it needs to be at a very minimal amount. The way that you can manage that is maybe getting into a roommate situation to help share in the cost of your living while you are in school. Also, only taking out what you need from student loans. So I always have this thing, just because you're offered, a $15,000 loan, if you need 8 for school and 3 for your living expenses, only take out an $11,000 loan. Don't take out the $15,000. Only take a loan for what you will need and budget accordingly so that you can make it from one school year to the next school year until you're able to complete your schooling. But keep in mind the importance of paying back those student loans once you finish school and why that is going to be more critical for you from a budgeting perspective when you do start your early career, because that will be a debt that you will take on immediately and a payment that will become due very immediately out of college. And you have to get prepared to make those payments and be able to make those payments on time.
Any other questions on there?
Any other questions out here for us? Anybody? Let's put the app up again. So one is Nerd Wallet, Nerd Wallet. The other one is Every Dollar Budgeting app. Every Dollar Budgeting app. Really good apps for you all to use. They go with you everywhere you go. If you have a smartphone, it's there with you. And so use them. But budgets are only as good as you are with maintaining them and keeping them up on a monthly basis. It is really just a guide that you use to hold your own self accountable for your expenses. That is why you want to create a budget. If you have not budgeted for it, I always say, then it's not to be spent. If there's not a line item for that, if you did not budget for that in that month, and it is just a want, then you do not spend the money because you did not budget for that. Okay?
I agree. And
go ahead, Christian.
Okay. For kids going to college and stuff, don't be afraid when you get to school to use coupons, to get deals, to try to get the best deals you can get, to go to the stores when they're doing the half off, to look into that stuff. Don't just go and just buy stuff straight out of pocket and not look up if you can get a coupon or if you can do this, if you can do that. For even when you go out to eat, if you have a coupon book and you can use a coupon, do it. That's all the little things that can elevate your budget and elevate your savings.
Right, good tips. I mean, coupons, I never mind a coupon or a good deal or a way to save.
That don't mean you have no money. It means you're being smart about your money.
That's right. Exactly means that you're being smart about your money. What should a student do with refunds on a loan? So if you do not need the funds, pay the loan. If you need the funds, budget accordingly with those refunds that you receive. But again, if you do not need the funds and there's a loan that is outstanding, pay down your loan, pay down your debt. The idea of budgeting is trying not to create debt. It is trying to live within your means. Then that means cash only, as much as you possibly can. Now, there will be loan payments because when you have household payments in terms of home mortgages, maybe a car loan, and even maybe a credit card. But again, we will talk more in a later series about credit cards and how to really manage credit cards, how to use them wisely, and really how to use credit cards where they work to your advantage and not work against you. So we're going to talk about that as well, because I will never encourage you all to carry a monthly debt on a credit card. So we will talk about the smart ways of using credit cards in a later series, which will be in a few weeks. So is it smart to save it to accumulate interest or consider it income? So that's a great question, but you're always starting before there's ever an opportunity to save. you're starting with your income. So, and I know interest rates are not all that great, with savings accounts right now, but there are some online banks. There are some other banks out there. You got to be smart about shopping for your banking needs that will have some really good savings account options for you right now. But I tell people all the time, if I can make $10 worth of interest in a whole year or $5 worth of interest in a year, it's $5 more that I didn't have to earn. And I would like to have that $5 accumulate through interest in my savings accounts, through interest payments in my savings account. So I would allow interest to always accumulate until a point where you feel like you want to take the interest as an income and you need it for your monthly living expenses. If you don't need interest for your monthly living expenses, do not remove the interest from your savings account, because compounded interest is always the best way to continue to save. And then of course you will make more money in your account over time, allowing your interest to really build up in your savings accounts. There's some great banks out there that have some really good interest rates right now on savings accounts. And it's just a matter of finding that bank that works best for you. I will also, another really big tip for me when I talk about savings, this is something that I've kind of teach to my young adults, also to my own son, is that if your savings account is not tied to your checking account, you are more likely to save. It's the convenience of being able to transfer that money from that savings account into that checking account that really kind of messes us up from and really kind of gets us off of our savings role that we really need to be doing. So I encourage you all, maybe you have a savings account in a separate bank from where you have your checking account. And that way it's a little bit more difficult to transfer those funds, and use it more immediately, and especially, again, if it wasn't budgeted for. And when you get down to zero at the end of the month, as I tell my son, if we got $3,000 and we've budgeted out the $3,000, and that could mean that 1,000 of that $3,000 was going into savings, I still don't have any money left at the end of the month, because the $1,000 still goes into savings and the other $2,000 went for whatever other line items and needs and expenses that we allocated it for. And then you're at zero until you get your next pay period, until you get your next payroll check. So kind of think about it like that, okay?
I agree with you, Darlene, on that one. The things that I would do with the money that I get in my savings account for my interest is I honestly put my interest money into my rainy day fund, into my rainy day account, like that little $8, $9, $10 or whatever you're getting monthly. Just throw it into a little account so you can build a little money and have another account that you're saving money off of. So that's something I would do with my interest.
So we will just kind of close with, if there are no more questions, we of course got just a few more minutes, and we certainly can take more questions. But again, just some quick things about savings, just really quick. Savings is just really about a discipline around the money that you earn. And setting goals for the dollars that you earn is really important. And even if your goals, don't feel like, okay, I don't have any big purchases that's coming up. It could be setting a goal because you do want a new television, and everything is okay with that. Like, nothing is wrong with planning to buy your new television. Nothing is wrong with planning to buy that new phone that you want. Nothing's wrong with planning to buy that tennis shoe that my son likes so well. Nothing is wrong with making plans for that. We're just saying you need to create a budget that is centered around you being able to acquire those goods, and they cannot come before your needs. So we just had another question pop up here, is how do you figure out how much a car loan should be, or how much car can I afford? So I'll briefly answer that question, because we are going to talk. We're going to have another session, and it's going to be specifically geared directly to loans and car loans. But so let's start with a loan is really, from a rate perspective, is tied to your credit score. Okay. And so it's always my hope my young adults are establishing good credit. And what I mean by establishing good credit is not a lot of credit. It means good credit. It means credit that you have obtained and credit that you are paying back on a timely basis or per the terms of the credit you've received. So therefore, a car loan, think about a car in this respect, is that it depreciates so considerably over a very short period of time. So it does not hold a lot of value. And so you've got to do some car research, as to what cars are better cars to buy, what cars hold their value better, so that you can make a good investment, or an investment where you feel like you can get your money's worth from the vehicle in which you're driving. So to determine how much car you can afford is really, again, setting that budget. It is based on how much money you are earning, how much is it doesn't come before your living expenses, right? It doesn't really come before that rent that may be due. A car is kind of on down there in terms of what that need is, because you can get a very good economical car and not have to spend a lot of money on it and be able to have something that is dependable. So therefore, you need to kind of understand what that car needs to look like for you. What do you need it to do for you? Is it something to get you to and from work? Do you need it for travel purposes? What size vehicle do you need? Do you need it to take children to and from? So there are things that you have to think about when you're considering purchasing a vehicle. And I encourage all of you all, when it comes to purchasing those first cars, that less initially is more. The less that you can spend on a vehicle and get something that is dependable for you is going to be better, until you can build up the type of credit that you need and the level of discretionary cash that you would like to have to purchase those cars that you just like, right? Because really a car is about meeting a need, getting you to and from in a safe manner, not about it being cute, pretty, rims, whatever else. It doesn't have to be all of that, okay? So I would say that it needs to be the least of your expenses, but if it is required, it needs to not be anything that overextends you financially. Because remember, the car payment is not all that you have. We spoke about that. You got the maintenance on the car. You got to know what that is all about. What kind of car budget, you have to maintenance that car and service that vehicle. So consider that. So, Christian, this question is for you. It says, what % of your budget is on a car?
Is on a car? Well, when I did have my car, I currently live in Denver, so I use public transportation and stuff like that. But when I did have my car, my budget was $40 a week for my car. I'd say $40 a week for my car, for my gas, for my oil change stuff, for things like that. So that's what I would do weekly, was $40, which is a little much, but I had an older car when I was in high school, so I had to be prepared for things to happen to it. So that's where my budget was in terms of my car. My car was very important for me, especially being in a place where I did depend on it. I did need it to get to work. I did need it for stuff like that. So I considered it a need. It was a need. So that's why I put so much money aside weekly for my vehicle.
So any other questions? If not, we got about a minute left and we're going to wrap up. We're going to tell you that the next time that we meet, we're going to talk about bank accounts. We're going to talk a little bit more about budgeting and kind of how to, again, tie your budget into your savings. We want to hear more from you all, especially those that's been on this first call. Tell us a little bit about what you have been able to find out, what budgets you've created, And if you have questions about your budgets that you've created, we want to be here to answer those questions for you, to help you kind of create those necessary line items so that you can really see what your financial health and welfare would look like with creating this snapshot of your income and your expenses. So I hope that you all will continue to join us. I also hope that you will share these sessions with others that you know in your communities and your friends and those that you go to church with, and invite them to join us. We are here for you all. We are here to try to answer all the questions that you have, help you to get better financially prepared so that you all can realize your financial goals and really, really know that you can dream big, and that your financial goals are a big step in helping you to really live the quality of life that you really want to live. But I'll tell you, it takes a lot of sacrifice up front. It takes a lot of discipline up front. It takes a lot of no's. It's just simply a no when it's not in the budget. It doesn't mean you don't have the money. It simply means it's not budgeted for. So we are looking forward to the next time that we meet. And if there's no other questions, we will say farewell for the evening to you all. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you guys for joining us. Have a great evening.
Thank you.